Scene/Chapter 18. Initiative action towards the goal. Team up and crash the party. Let's act. I thought LBGT was a club sandwich. It is, darling. The change, transgender Tara. Next morning, Bob is drinking coffee with Dick, who is drinking some colorful highly alcoholic morning cocktail in the market cafe, and says to him, "Dick, it's the time to act now, I have alerted the world." Dick as usual jumps up, poses around and says, "Call me a bard's art," gives a horrible snorting laugh and says, "I can act." Bob tells him to shut up and sit down. Bard is not the word. Bob says, "We need to go to the factory I found on the helicopter trip. I have the location and the supply chain to it, and it needs full exposure. Something awful is going on there and I have it all together now. The facts seem to have all proven themselves, more or less. There are too many to ignore." Dick says, "You are right. After breakfast I have something to show you." Bob says, "Okay, but please keep your trousers on." They eat and laugh together. After they eat, they get up and Dick takes Bob to a bright tuk-tuk that is waiting for them, driven by an exotic-looking lady boy dressed like in a feminine Michael Jackson uniform. Bob says, "I didn't mean now. I am not prepared and don't have my stuff." Dick says, "Don't worry, chum. The least you think, the more chance there is of surprise." Bob says, "What do you mean think?" Dick looks at him and says, "You know what we mean," putting his fists over each other to make yin-yang chi sign. "I said we would provide the emotion for you, let it flow," followed by his awful laugh. They drive out of the suburbs and out into the rainforest and then off-road onto a track and into the trees, where Dick announces, "I had a hunch," as they turn a corner and into a clearing. He says, "Welcome to Bob's lair. Robin and his men haven't come out, but the brave ladies have come out and are ready. No more worries, me old sport." Bob sits in shock as he sees a regimented lined-up set of tuk-tuks, three-wheel bikes with attached jet skis and big bikes, all decorated in gaudy bright camouflage, and the boys all dressed in designer loose silk camouflage uniforms of different kinds of camouflage, some extreme jolting patterns with wild colors, and posing to each other, doing catwalk swing hips and laughing. Bob says it's Camp LBGT, Dick laughs and says it's Camp. Bob is introduced to all by Dick as they play a mock inspection. The boys salute with raised arms and limp wrists and laugh. Bob does an open fingers Benny Hill salute and Dick makes hippie signs. Bob says this is like a scene out of Monty Python. Dick says maybe, but these are not actors, they are fitter than anyone, and wow, can they fight like bitches. Bob goes to an artist's easel under a tree set up with a big screen on it and plugs in his tablet, and the maps he made before pop up on the screen. He explains the locations and that the enemy, as he squirms, have powerful mind-altering abilities, and they as a group must be focused on disrupting the place so they can get a full set of video footage without being distracted by what may be projected into their minds by the people that are there. Dick points at a couple of jet skis that are kitted out with a powerful set of rugged video equipment, and Bob goes and looks over the kit with the help of the lady boys. Bob smiles and says to Dick, "Are they the film crew?" Dick says, "The best, been to all war zones, and back." Bob says, "Dressed like that?" Dick says, "Not completely," and smiles. As it moves into the evening and Bob is still explaining the situation, one of the lady boys dressed in a sparkly covered Viking helmet and silk camouflage says, "Can we go tomorrow with a hangover like good Vikings?" Dick says, "Oh yay. And wear a toga and with the horns too." Bob says, "No, but then turns to Dick and says, "With hangovers it will be harder for them to warp our minds." Dick says he has some morning tea that will help that too. Bob says, "Okay, full morning hangovers ordered." Suddenly a load of bottles appear as if by magic, music rises in volume, and they have a party. Then they slowly, one by one, collapse, rest and sleep on bed rolls by their bikes and vehicles. Next morning they are all hungover as expected, and Dick is giving cups of tea to them from a flask, but they all sniff it with a smile. After drinking tea that perks them up, they are quickly assembled in a road trip formation and set off to the coast. The machines are playing Status Quo, Boston, Blue Oyster Cult and ZZ Top trucking music, which is totally uncoordinated and makes an awful noise. Bob says to Dick, can't they play some pretty gay R&B, canto pop or K-pop wrist-cutting music? Dick says they are ladyboys, not gays, they know who they are and what they want. They drive through the country and eventually to a hilltop where they can see an isolated village in a bay surrounded by hills, just like the reconnaissance trip on Bob's helicopter videos. As they stop and look, several petrol tankers drive up and screech to a halt. Bob looks as if he shouldn't be there and goes to hide. Dick says it's okay, they are ours. Well, they are now. Bob says what? Dick explains they have been stolen with a bit of assistance from ladyboy friends in the petrol companies and modified with their bags inside to blow out the fuel. Dick shows Bob his tablet and says, see, our experiments show that pushing the fuel out first under pressure creates a bigger fireball than using explosives to blow them up, and getting hold of explosives is against the law. Bob looks at Dick and says, oh yay, against the law, bloody hell. And stealing the tankers is okay? They laugh at the pictures of fireballs exploding. As they talk, the bikes with jet skis are traveling away to the coast. Dick says when we hit the village the jets will take the hovership at the end of the pier and we will approach the island in that as a stealth tactic. Bob is ecstatic with the plan. The Jets, who are playing Elton John's Benny and the Jets song on their bike systems, radio back to Dick they are setting off and to wait for the acquisition before closing down the village. Two groups from each side of the pier in split front and back double Y approach to block any escape, are seen approaching the hovership and boarding it. Next they radio the Y fronts are in, all okay, nobody here, as a few guards can be seen being thrown over the side of the mooring platform. The petrol tankers move off and park in the village and are left there as the drivers drive off on bikes, leaving the klaxons beeping and a taped warning repeating, save yourselves and leave now, frying tonight, you have 10 minutes counting down. The tankers blow and spray flames all over the buildings, but there seems to be very few people who have run off from the buildings. As there is no resistance, Dick says clever, it's unmanned, nobody to tell tales. Seems like they only use it when they need to. The team shoot down the hill and along the long pier, shooting up CCTV cameras and holding their hangover heads and onto the hovership. The ship is already fired up and ready to go with the jets in charge and a few guards tied up under their control. As they break away the ship spins around and Bob says, have you driven one of these before? To the pilots they say in unison. Of course, Dick says, in their dreams, sailor. They all sit around on the ship as it speeds to the islands that soon appear on the radar. It seems like it is flying itself, says one of the pilots. Bob says they know we are coming, can't you feel it yet? They approach the middle island terminal and the hovership does an autopilot docking maneuver. Look at that, says one of the pilots, it's easy. They all tut-tut as it appears their ship has more control than they do, and Dick says it's a good job, it's a good weather day. Dick looks at Bob and says they are always ready to take the credit from technology even though they are not all there themselves. Due to technology, Bob gives him a pained expression as the pilots look round with shocked looks but then look at each other and smile. One says, we have to remember, the greatest admiral of all time, the Chinese Zheng He of the 1400s, was a eunuch but he did not have hormone injections to back him up. Dick says, hormones up the back? But he burnt all his ships and they all laugh and tell him he is disgusting. They get off their hovership and see nobody anywhere. Bob says it was like this on the helicopter flyover, it's uncanny. Creepy ghost towns. As they slide the jet skis off their hovership on the dockside, two lady boys who have been quite outrageous and dressed in flowing silk camouflage strut along with three others on each side like the standard cowboy walk, with their elbows out and arms displaying their armpits. They take it in turns to whistle the music to the high noon song, adding the words "Oh don't forsake me oh my darling," and then Calamity Jane we just blown in from the windy city, adding fart sounds to release the tension of going into battle the unknown. They sing "There's a coach comin'," and then they all kneel and sing "And we don't want to miss a thing." They get to the land end of the dock and turn with the outer ones kneeling and looking in all directions and slam their hands on their hips and shout "All clear Bombardier." One of the team struts towards them draped in flowing silk camouflage with more than enough glittering stripes on her arm, camps it up and says "Who says girls can't be in the army? Sorry no bald head Marines," as she flicks her hair and pretends to fix makeup. Kardashians get this as she pouts at a camera and pokes out her bum. After this outrageous performance that would frighten anybody, the jet skis zoom out on the river with long camouflage streamers flying from their antennas. Bob says it's like Priscilla, Queen of the Desert on water. Dick says it's more like Pink Boy, Dragons of the River. Team Sheboy and the Jets, as is scrawled on the jet skis, zoom up the rivers in several V formations like fighter jets, with the rear wide ski swerving between sides as they go around the winding bends and up canals towards the factory complex. The high-tech Asian jet skis have full armory on each, multiple small guided rocket silos like helicopter equivalents but better, mini torpedoes, spectacular flak diversions, and they blast into action as they approach the factory complex canals. As automatic gunfire comes from unmanned towers, they destroy the towers with ease. Bob says "Here we go," Dick says "Yay, game on. Anybody?" in an awful English knob accent.